Hello, this is Conquering History Games, and welcome to another guide to the nation in the world of Kaiserreich. Today is the Bharatiya Commune, as chosen by my Patreon voters. Let's just go ahead and get started. There's a lot of ground that has to be covered here, and I don't want this video to be over an hour long, so I'll try to move as quickly as possible. Although I'm still going to, drop some knowledge along the way. So first things first, let's talk about the context here. If you've already seen my Princely Federation introductory video, you already know that India in this Kaiserreich timeline was split into three parts because as the British began to lose control of their colonial empire, the Dominion of India was essentially just relegated to the northwest section of the Indian subcontinent, although Afghanistan is a bit bigger here. And the princes formed a federation in the south, while the commune formed itself around Calcutta here. So let's just go over the base stats. You've got 29 divisions here. And some interesting generals. You have lots of generals, for one thing, some of whom have very good traits, a lot of ones with reconnaissance. You've got a jungle rat here, an engineer. Interestingly enough, you have Lakshma Sagal, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, and that is a her. This is a woman. She was actually somebody who in the original timeline was a member of the Indian National Army during World War II. She was an officer in the female regiment of them. So that's kind of interesting that she's in here. And then you have your one and only Field Marshal Chandra Bose, who has the offensive doctrine as a level 4. We're going to be seeing a lot of him over the course of this. So I'm just going to assign these people. Oops. Just some borders. Doesn't really matter right now. Actually, wait. Let me show you something that you really should get in the habit of doing if you're playing as the commune. Keep at least one division in Calcutta for defense as needed. So you've got 3 research slots, typical for an Indian nation. You've got 12 civilian factories, but 9 of them are being eaten up by consumer goods right now. Part of that is because you have the underdeveloped economy, national spirit, which is similar to the effects that the other Indian nations have. You also have a divided government, which is costing you political power, national unity, and division organization. So unlike the divided princes national spirit that the Princely Federation has, there's absolutely no upside to having this. So it's something you're going to want to get rid of, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how you get rid of that. Military factories, you have 7, so that's actually not too terrible. You just have basic infantry equipment right now, although you could very easily research infantry equipment number 1 at the start. It's up to you if you want to have a well-trained army or not. Speaking of army, let's look at our manpower. You have 1.44 million manpower, and you are only at volunteer only. So I'm going to have a link in the description below to an old campaign I did. It's from several patches ago where I played as the Bharatiya Commune, but you just have so much manpower at your disposal that even though I believe I took that campaign to 1948, I never changed my conscription law off of volunteer. Because you just have so much manpower, and you can get corps in other countries and stuff like that. So let's just dismiss all that. National focuses. There's a pretty big tree that you have to deal with. However, this branch of it, the special meeting of the INC, you cannot open for a year, so I'm not going to talk about that yet. And I'm also not going to talk about the final showdown just yet, or the Third International, or India United, because those are 3 more branches of your focus tree that have to be unlocked. Let's start with the army stuff. You have establishing our central command, which gives you 100 political power, so not a terrible first choice. Then on the far left here, you have your research branch or your focus tree. The particularly important ones here are that you can expand your research team here. So this gives you your 4th research slot. And that's actually incredibly important because you cannot get your 5th research slot until you are over here in the India United branch, and you have to take place of the Red Raj and then eventually come down here to our greatest minds combined. I'm going to talk about this towards the end of the video, but this branch is quite frankly bullshit, and either they need to fix it or change the bug or something, but you're never going to get this 5th research slot, at least not before like 1949. So you effectively are only going to have 4 research slots maxed in a realistic game as the commune, so you might want to pick this up as quickly as possible. You also can get a research bonus for nukes, so that's something you want to keep in mind. Moving over to the army branch of your focus tree, Unlike many other focus trees in the game, you don't have something where you are being pushed down the grand battle plan route or the mass assault route or anything like that. It is actually kind of flexible. You just get a land doctrine bonus here, infantry equipment, modernizing artillery. These are pretty basic stuff. Centralizing the army supply here is very good because you get reduced equipment and artillery production costs. So that's good if you want to make a big army with your huge population. But the thing that kind of separates the commune from the other two nations is you could do some interesting things here. For example, you have 2 plus 50% research bonuses for armor technology. So if you wanted to go with some sort of an army that incorporated a lot of tanks, that is certainly something that you could do. And actually, while I'm talking about the centralized army command, it does have something in common with all three of these penultimate focuses on the Air Force and the Naval branch. You give you national spirits where you have a reduced production cost. So you can have all your ships 10%, all your air minus 10%, and then your infantry equipment minus 5, artillery minus 5. So that's pretty good stuff. However, the very last focus on all these branches is a mutually exclusive one. So you do not get to pick all three of these. If you go with the air one, you get an additional minus 10% production cost on your aircraft, so for a minus 20% total, and reduced air doctrine, and you can make air bases faster, and you can make ace generation chance go up 25%. So very, very powerful air branch here if you go all the way down, especially if you were to combine it with the... oops, wrong. Right, here we go. If you were to combine it with the Fighter Ace initiative, giving you another 25% ace generation chance, you can start having aces all over the place. Ruling the ground will give you... They all give you a 10% reduction in your doctrine time. This gives you more of a production cost reduction. This one gives you less supply consumption and planning speed, which I guess is okay. I personally like the air one the most, but all three of these are very good. You also can get an ace here. You get Rango ready Dodia. Look him up. So naval stuff, again, you can eventually come down here to a reduced production cost. You do have to exclusively decide if you want to get more Marines for and transport models, research bonus. So if you're going to be doing naval invasions, you want to take that. Or you could choose to protect your coast, where you just get a bunch of coastal forts all over the place. So do you want to be naval invading people or protecting yourself from being naval invaded? That's the main decision you have to make there. And that is pretty much it for your... Oh, wait, no, industrial trade. I didn't talk about this yet. So you cannot do the special meeting of the INC or the final showdown here until it has been 1 year. So basically, you can complete 5 research trees, or 6, depending on what you want to do, how soon you want to go into it. Like if you want to wait until it's January 1st and not be taking any focuses. So you may want to plan out your first year accordingly. If you did want to take 5, you could go down this industry branch, get some infrastructure and get some oil, but it's nothing particularly amazing. But the question of the Bengal elites is actually kind of interesting. Or you could also just take these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get your 4th research slot quickly. But I'm just going to demonstrate what would happen if you were to go down the industrial path. So this is just saving time, and I'm not going to be auto-completing for the whole first year. But you're going to get this question of India's elites. So this is something that has to do with the essentially highest class of people that lived in the Bharatiya Commune. You have a couple of decisions here, all of which cost you political power, except for this top one. I mean, so these two cost you political power. Basically, you could decide to get some elites into your government, but it's going to cost you more political power over time, as well as production efficiency cap. You can offer them incentives, which just cuts in half the penalties, but you're going to lose 5% national unity, and you don't gain or lose any political power. Or you can force them to comply, and you get a plus 100 political power, and you're going to have a resistance to the elites for a very, very long time. A very, very long time, for probably years. There is something that can change it later, but you're going to go minus 10% national unity. I feel like the game is incentivizing you to do that, though. So let me tell you something. If you are playing as one of the Indian nations and they start to push through your initial border that you set up, you're gonna lose, probably, most likely. So your national unity shouldn't actually matter a ton when you're, especially when you're playing as the Bharatiya Commune. So, but as you can see already, you're down to minus 40. You're at 40% national unity at the 1 year mark. Although I did this would be a year later that this happens. So now I'm just going to fast forward and we're going to take a look at what happens once more of the focus trees open up. All right, so the INC meeting is about to begin, but I just wanted to talk real quick about the Third International, which I've already completed here. I'm not showing this event where you decide to go to the Third International because it's very obvious that you do want to go, just like when you are playing the Commune of France or you are playing the Union of Britain. There is no good reason not to go. There are only horrible political power penalties if you don't. So if you accept, you then can open up these 4 other focuses here. The Anglo-Indian Trade Agreement will allow you to get a big reduction in your consumer goods factories if the Union of Britain accepts it. Inviting Ho Chi Minh is something that you are going to have to do if basically you need Gandhi in charge if you want it to fire, but the Commune of France gets an event where Ho Chi Minh is invited to Calcutta, and then way down the line, you could eventually overthrow Germany and Indochina with him if you have Gandhi as your leader. Then you can either seek aid from Britain or France, which you can only do if you have attended the Third International, and then you're going to basically get a bunch of bonuses for doing it. Of course, they may or may not accept, but you're only shutting yourself off from beneficial things if you do not attend the Third International meeting. So I didn't see any reason to show that because there's only upside to going. And this is an introductory guide. If you want to do advanced kooky stuff, that's up to you. So let's let some time go by. But one thing I want to note about the special meeting of the INC is that you're not actually going to get the special session until after the 70 days have passed. The events will stop popping up a little bit afterwards, so you can decide to just wait and not get another national focus once this is complete, or you can choose to go research something else with your national focus. It's totally up to you. I think it's okay to just wait a few days while the policies play themselves out. So let's go ahead and fast forward to when that is. Here is your first event regarding the INC, and as you can see, it hasn't even been 10 days. And what is going to happen at the end of this is that Lala here, he is retiring. There is going to be a new national leader for India. So these policies, much like when you are making your policy decisions as the Commune of France or Union of Britain, are going to determine who is going to be the leader of India for at least the next few years, at least until you've united the subcontinent. You can change that later, but we're not gonna. We'll get to that eventually. So I always do recommend to beginners that you just take all of the same political party for all the decisions, no matter what the consequences are, whether you're gaining or losing political power, because it's going to make your party more popular, which could lead to more political power, which could lead to better stability and changing all your other laws and governments and getting companies and ministers and things like that. So the first example I'm going to show is if you go completely syndicalist. So the syndicalists are the middle of the road for India, and while the Bharatiya Commune, I mean, and while you do get some interesting characters here, you do get Nehru, who actually in the original timeline was the first ever Indian prime minister. You get him, and let's see, also Second International Congress, just go. There's, again, no reason not to do it. You're going to let some time go by here, and now you get your new leader. Let the ruling classes tremble. And you're going to get Fazul Huk here, the Lion of Bengal himself. So the syndicalists are more focused on industry, on realpolitik. They are the middle of the road. And you do get to bypass here once you've done that, and you can start to take more national focuses. I'm not going to go over all of these. It's just getting political power and things like that. You can read them on your own time. But the main difference here is you need to decide if you want to be researching things faster by focusing on technology, so you can get better industry and stuff here, or do you want production, which will reduce your infantry equipment production, and you get a couple of factories as well. Once you have taken all of these, which I'll just go ahead and focus autocomplete just to show what's going to happen when you do finish. You are going to get rid of one of your national spirits, your negative ones here, divided government. It goes away once you get to the end. And it's gone. Great. So I could go into a little bit more detail about the stuff that happens down the street, but I think it's just the most boring one. So let's talk about the real yin and yang, the true decision you have to make when you're playing as India. Are you going to follow Bose or are you going to follow Gandhi? So let's go back to the policies. The first of the more radical branches that you could take at the INC meeting I'm going to go over is Gandhi and the radical socialists. So he costs political power because he says that private property is something that should be allowed to exist. How radical of him indeed. But you just let some time go by. And you see you have the focus on agriculture, and this is just sort of giving you an idea of how Gandhi and his party are thinking. But probably the most important of these policies is the third one that pops up. Here we go. It's when he's urging unification. Bose is very much, as he was in our original timeline, that India has to become its own country, a united country, and it has to be done with violence as if necessary, and will most likely be necessary. So he's calling for war against the other two branches of the other two countries within India. But Gandhi says that there should be a peaceful way to do this. Now, this is going to cost you 100 political power to take this stance, but you're going to get more popular as a result of it. And once a little bit of time here has passed, yes, Gandhi is now the new leader of the agrarians. So you get him in charge, which I actually think is not possible in vanilla. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that in vanilla Hearts of Iron 4, you actually cannot get Gandhi as a leader. But here he is. The man himself, you can start to bypass the stuff here. There are two branches, just like the others, in the commune that you can go down. Let's do the focus autocomplete once more. And again, the first few branches is just political power stuff. This focus on defense, though, I want to talk about here. So you're going to get more of your division defense on core territory, and you get a modifier of plus 20% land fort construction speed. So if you want to just play defensive and wall up and watch the Dominion and the Princely Federation pile corpses in front of your borders, by getting this focus on defense and building some land forts on your own time, and then at the very last minute preparing your western and northern borders, which are going to add 2 land forts to a lot of states. And I do mean add, so it's not going to set the level to 2 like in Czechoslovakia and vanilla. It is going to add 2 more to wherever you have them. You use that in the rivers, and you can get some serious casualties going on for your opponents, that is. But you have then 2 decisions to make here. You can either approach the enemy in peace. So this is a branch where you actually can possibly unite the Bharatiya Commune and India. You're more than welcome to try. It's not very likely going to happen. It's actually impossible to happen in this game that I'm playing because the Dominion of India went social conservative. It can only happen if they went social democratic. But I don't want to go off on a tangent about that. I've already made a video about how you can create India, how this unification will work. There will be a link to it in the description below. So you may want to do it anyway, though. If you might want to go for it if you're the Social Democrats. If the Dominion of India has Social Democrats, because you can spark a civil war and you can kill Bose. So if you're into that, go for it. However, the one that I'm going to be showing here is the creation of the Home Guards. This gives you some more political power, and you are going to get a couple of divisions, but they are pretty shitty. As you can see, they are green as goose shit. And although what you may want to do sometimes is just put them in Calcutta. Although if you went with this Home Guard way, then the Maximus revolt is not going to happen. But yeah, they're pretty shitty units. And then you can reform the Commune's army, which is actually really good, because not only are you going to get more recovery rate and organization, for some reason it also gives you a daily political power cost, so a reduction. So that's very nice. But that's about all there is to it with Gandhi, because I already talked about the enemy at peace and the Lucknow Summit stuff in another video. Again, that will be in the description below. Now, let's take a look at Gandhi's rival in Indian hearts, Chandra Bose. Now, what I've done here is now I've taken all of the Maximus policies at that first meeting of the INC. And now you have Chandra Bose here. Now, Chandra Bose is somebody who is not nearly as well known as Gandhi is in the Western world. I mean, of course, they know who he is in India. He's got an airport named after him, and there's statues in Calcutta and stuff like that. But in the Western world, we don't really know about him. And just to give a brief history of his life, he basically was somebody who used to work with India, who wanted a free India. He was actually the president of the Indian National Congress at some point, put there by Gandhi, but he eventually was exiled from the country. He'd been arrested, and then he fled the country. He had to sneak into Afghanistan, and he actually went over to Germany and hung out with the Nazis for a very long time. Although he did spend some time in the Soviet Union, he spent some time in Japan, and he was always trying to find a way to create a free India through the creation of an Indian National Army. That goes back to that woman who was a general that I was talking about. And he ended up dying in the original timeline when he was trying to fly to Russia so that he could hopefully get Stalin's support for the creation of a free India. But like I said, he died in the plane crash. Well, Transimir's actually doing well today. Anyway, so Bose here, he's all about industrialization, being socially to the left, but fascist discipline, and his focuses reflect that. Now, I've already taken his first several focuses here. Just the usual stuff. You get some political power and little things like that, little boosts. Then you have two decisions to make here. You can either begin the purge or you can rouse the masses. If you were to do either of these things, you are going to face severe consequences. So let's first talk about... Actually, I'm only going to show you one of these because they can both lead to the same event. So first, rousing the masses is good because you're going to get an additional recruitable population factor and a division recovery rate. And then Total War is upon us gives you some volunteers, just like before, but they're not great. All right, now I have researched both beginning the purge and a new army arises. So the purge... like I said before, it is sort of like the Great Purge that happens in the Soviet Union during Vanilla. You're going to lose recovery rate, you're going to lose organization, it's going to be very bad for you. However, immediately after that, you can do a new army arises focus, which is amazing. You're going to get 100 political power, and you get the Maximus army, which has all sorts of bonuses, a bigger recovery rate than the agrarian army, a bigger organization boost than the agrarian army. You're going to get a reduction in military leader costs. So if you are somebody who doesn't like field marshals, you instead like to group everybody into 24, you can start to build more of, you can get more generals. So usually this would cost you 45 political power to get another one, but right now it's only going to cost you 22. So you can see I get one there, and the next one just still going to cost only 25, and so on and so forth. So if you're into that, that's pretty good. But also, it is going to reduce your daily political power cost by 0.10, which is double the cost reduction that the agrarian army has. So it's an extremely, extremely good effect, but you are not actually going to keep it forever. So the reason that I'm letting the clock run here is that eventually something is going to happen, because and again, you can find this in my playthrough where I already played is the Bharatiya Commune below, but you are still going to be ideologically opposed to Gandhi and his agrarians, the radical socialists, and the creation of the Maximus army is something that they are going to have a problem with. It's actually taking quite a while to happen, so I might actually just cut ahead to when the event pops up. Now, after you complete well, technically it's after you do the purge, but then the factor of it happening is increased once you do a new army arises, and on average it happens 50 days after you begin the purge, but that is flexible. In fact, sometimes I've seen it not happen at all. But Gandhi will threaten war because he hates how Bose is just purging the members of the other faction. So you can try to quietly assassinate him. Never seen it work, and I've tried repeatedly, but maybe it's randomly generated or something, but it's just going to cost you a bunch of political power and not work. Or you could choose to eliminate the agrarians altogether and start a civil war. So let's see what happens if you do that. Okay, now You might notice it says here, the message from the Bharatiya Commune changes their diplomatic status with us, declare war. It is technically the agrarian revolt. That is their name. However, what I've noticed, and I'm pretty sure that this is a bug, is that you will lose every single national spirit that you have. And I'm 99% certain that this is a bug, because then the agrarian revolt is considering itself to be a member of the BHC. This war can go very badly for you. Although, if we look here, Gandhi's got 11 to 21 men. They've taken half of your units, so you have to be very careful when it starts. And it's going to typically be scattered. And this is something that can also happen after you've united all of India. It is still possible that it could happen if you have not removed the divided government national spirit yet. So this is something that you really have to keep an eye out for, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that usually you're going to want to keep a couple of divisions in Calcutta. Let me show you why by fast forwarding. Now, here's what I wanted to demonstrate to you. I left Calcutta completely undefended. The agrarian revolt just walked right in. I have significantly lowered my victory point count as a result of it, but I'm not at 0. But they hold Calcutta, and let's let some time go by. Now, you're going to get this event pop up. Agrarians seize Calcutta. Agrarian forces have stormed into the capital, seizing the Indian National Congress buildings and rounding up the leaders of the Maximus. Subhas Chandra Bose has been arrested, and the Maximus themselves have had their power severely curtailed. Indeed, they may not even be able to participate in future Congress events. The civil war is now over. So if you lose Calcutta, it's game over. Doesn't matter what your capitulation score is. So that is why you want to keep some people in there. And as it says, this will hurt. You're going to lose 200 political power. You just got out of this nasty civil war. And then Gandhi becomes your leader. Now, it's not over yet. The game's not over. You just have a new leader, but if you just wanted Gandhi as your leader the whole time, why didn't you do that in the first place? So, just wanted to let you know that that's how the revolt can go. Alternatively, you could win the revolt, which has some events of its own, as we will see right now. When you win, you are going to get this event. The agrarians are defeated, and you're just going to imprison Gandhi and his contemporaries, and you're just going to execute them all. So they say, surely they would have done the same in reverse had they had the chance, but we're not them, are we? Which, again, is actually a bug, I think, because there used to be a different event that happened here, but as of patch 0.4.8, which is here, you get this one, which gives you plus 200%, plus 200 political power and 10% national unity. And then you are going to not have any of that divided government anymore, but you're also going to have lost the Maximus army and stuff like that. Now, part of me wonders, oh, okay, so maybe it is a clean slate, but I'm pretty damn sure that it is a bug. But let's just keep in mind, everybody, that this is a mod. That's how it goes. And you also are going to bypass the ending the national debate, which is going to remove your national spirit, divided government, but you won't get the political power as a result of that. So that basically covers the political branch of the focus tree. Now that that political stuff is out of the way, I want to talk about the Burmese Republic for a minute here. Now, Burma is usually going to find itself underneath the control of the radical socialists. Doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it does happen most of the time, so this is an event you're probably going to have to deal with. Basically, because they are now a member of the left, they are going to offer you the option to either absorb them, which is going to cost you a lot of political power, but you get a bunch of cores. You can make them a puppet, or you can just completely ignore them and lose 100 political power. So basically, it's a question of, do you want to puppet them, or do you want to get cores on them? Let's say that you decide to annex them entirely. You're then going to get another event that is going to happen shortly thereafter. Just waiting for it to actually pop up any minute now. Well, I'll just go ahead and start talking about it now, because it does happen pretty quick. But because you now own the Burmese land, you have to decide what to do about the oil fields that are there. Now, there is a fair amount of oil here. It's no Azerbaijan, but what you are going to have to decide is if you want to nationalize the oil fields or want. Now, if you're a role player and you're playing as, say, the Totalists, then nationalizing them is very much something you're going to want to do. But let's just wait for the event to actually come up. All right, so here's the event that I was talking about. So if you decide to completely take over the oil fields, as I was saying, it's pretty good if you're the totalist, but it's also going to increase your popularity. So right now, the Maximus have a popularity of 37. So a plus 5% would make them go from low popularity to medium popularity, which leads to more daily political power gain. You could have it be run by local trade unions. This is good for the syndicalists, or you can maintain the status quo, which is minus 100. So once again, it's like there's three choices, but there's really only two choices. Unless you are the radical socialist, then you're going to want to maintain the status quo. But because I'm the totalist, I'm going to want to do the national takeover, become a little bit more popular. There we go. And you get 42%. Also, you're going to get a little bit of more infrastructure here. So now you have 7 infrastructure instead of 5. It is finally time to talk about the final showdown. Now, this is a branch that pretty much all of the Indian nations have, just with some slight variations. After you've prepared your border with them, you can then choose to either just get a regular annex war goal. Keep in mind, though, you cannot be taking these focuses unless you have 300,000 men in the field. In the field, not just in training, in the field. You could just get a typical annex war goal, or you could try these socialist unification events. So we're just going to take a look at what happens if we try the socialists of the West unite. You're going to get these options where you could attempt to have some socialist uprisings happen, or you could just abandon the scheme and go to war the old-fashioned way. But I mean, if you were going to do that, why didn't you just take Hyderabad in the first place? So let's just take the event. I mean, take the attempt and just see what happens. A little bit of time go by here. Getting ready for the war. You will have a successful uprising here. Now, if it doesn't work, you'll obviously have some sort of consequences, but there you have it. So these uprisings can be useful if they do work, because now we just took out a now you have like an inside way into the country. So if you've been working on your navy, or even if you haven't, maybe you can seize one of these docks quickly, for example, and start to funnel men over. And so this can be very useful at isolating your enemy's army, encircling them, particularly if they have been spending time on building forts along their border, because all of the Indian nations get focuses that allow them to do that. Now, if you tried the same thing in the north, let's see if that works. Yes, once again, going to make the attempt. But if it doesn't work, you're going to lose 200 political power. Let's see if it does. Oh, cool. The resistance of the elites has ended. It takes usually about a year or so, a little bit over a year, sometimes over about 2 years before that resistance of the elites thing goes away, which is very good. Now, as you see here, you have new war participants, because clearly this failed, your attempt to incite revolt. And this is bad, because the Dominion of India, isolated in a bubble, is probably the weakest of these three. But it is backed by the might of the Entente. So now you are finding yourself at war with the French Republic, you're at war with the Kingdom of Canada, you are at war with the Australasian Confederation, which is actually pretty close, so they can start naval invading you, and anybody else who has joined the Entente as well. So it could things can get bad for you in a hurry. But let's say you manage to defeat the Federation and you take all of the Dominion of India's land. Well, what's going to happen then? As you see here, I have defeated the Deccan Federation, I've taken Madras, I have taken the Dominion. They have all capitulated, but there are Entente forces here, so the war will continue. So I have some Entente forces here surrounded, and they should be falling very soon here, although there is a naval invasion going on. Yep, there it is. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to cut ahead to when I've destroyed all these guys. So I learned that I need to start using my console commands less. The trigger event is when you make the Dominion of India capitulate, and you do have to make it capitulate, and you get all of their forces of their allies, meaning the British and the French and such, off of the continent. Then you're going to get this event, Victory in the North, where you can propose an armistice, and then the war will just end because the Entente doesn't have any soldiers in the area and they're just cutting their losses. Or you can choose to fight on, which would cost you 300 political power, and then you got to go invade Canada and Africa, and it just becomes a mess. So you're just generally going to want to propose the armistice. So That is it for the unification of India. Let's talk about what happens afterwards. Now we are in a situation where you, as the commune, you have won the sort of three-sided civil war kind of thing, and you are in control of the entire subcontinent. Once you have done that, you then are allowed to begin taking India united, which is going to give you a great national spirit, where you are going to have the subcontinent, you're going to have more national unity, and plus 0.20 political power per day. So that's very, very good. But you're going to get a bunch of event pop-ups like this, Resistance in Sind, where infrastructure is going to be destroyed, civilian factories are going to be hurt, sometimes you'll lose political power, and it's just really, really bad. And you're going to have to deal with it for a long time until you go down these two branches, the fate of the Delhi officers and integration, and fate of the princely officers and integration, which deals with the Dominion of India, former territories, and the princely territories, respectively. Now, I've talked about this before in other videos at length. These are broken. They take years and years to go into effect. You just are going to get events where it decides, do you want to integrate quickly, which costs you 200 political power, or do you want to integrate slowly, which will cost you 100 political power, and it's you recoring all of those areas. And it literally, even when you go fast, takes years and years. And it's just completely not worth it. If you have all of India, you're going to have a ton of factories, and it's just better to just keep repairing the damage from the resistance. Yeah, the pop-ups are going to be annoying, but this takes so long to do. And the problem is, you have this focus, the place of the Red Raj in the world, which you can't do until Delhi and Sindh are your cores, which is only going to happen once you take these 6 focuses. Great. Now, the place of the Red Raj is just going to give you a very, very simple option. You can either choose to join the Commune of France in the Third International, that still exists, or you can choose to form your own faction, or you can choose to not be in any faction at all. And that is all that is. After that, Red India Rises just gives you more unity and political power, and then you have your 5th research slot. But what you just basically have to accept, unless you're going to be playing a game into the 50s, that all of these are pointless. These 9 are basically pointless, and you're never going to get them. So what the problem is that over here you have events where you could claim other areas. Which actually is not a problem. I don't know why I said it's a problem. But you can go after Nepal, you go after Goa, you go after Ceylon. You just basically get cores on the rest of the subcontinent, which showed that you could just have Greater India. Because there is no Bhutan, there is no Nepal, there is no Goa, there is no Ceylon, there is only Greater India. So that's what those do. And then the revolution in Indochina, do you remember way back when I was talking about inviting Ho Chi Minh? The revolution in Indochina is where you can go for the sedition in the German Empire. And incidentally, I want to pull back what I was saying. I said before that you have to be radical socialist to make that happen, but actually you have to be syndicalist. But you can only do that if you've invited Ho Chi Minh. So these 2 events could easily happen 10 years apart. But it's just something I wanted you guys to be aware of. So let's just let the second meeting of the INC happen, and then we'll talk about, then we'll wrap this video up. Now the second INC is going to start, and you have to start deciding what is going to be the future of India now that the war is over and you own the whole continent. This is very interesting because in some of these you get 4 decisions to make. I'm not going to go over every single thing, but I just wanted to show you what happens if you take all of the radical socialist policies. So you give power to the village communes. Let's let some more time go by. I probably actually should have let them all queue up. It's not like this video isn't long enough already. Let the local villages assume control of the farms. Come on. Just a couple more. Enforcing economic coherency. We want to be self-sufficient. As you can already see, the agrarians have quite a lead because the Maximus, they were always kind of a minority a little bit. All right. Yeah, stuff about martial law, and then there's also going to be one about the caste system, I believe. More resistance. Yeah, here we go. But this is interesting. The radical socialists say that untouchability is a sin and let the people know it, unless they, maybe the sentence is not structured properly, but it just has to do with like mainstream Hinduism and stuff like that. But let's just let some time go by here. And there we have it. The agrarians are now controlling Congress. They become the ruling party, so you actually can change your ruling party. And Gandhi is back because he's not dead for some reason. You'd think Bose would have had him killed, but so you just have this interesting situation in the commune where you can have one Indian leader during the war years, and then you have a different Indian leader during peacetime, or perhaps during expansion. So if you want to have Bose take over the continent, and then afterwards get Gandhi in control, and now it's later, and then you could, maybe develop some nukes and have your words backed by nuclear weapons, those kind of fun things, you absolutely could do that. Anyway, whew, that was a long one. But I think that is more than an introductory guide to the Bharatiya Commune. I really like all the nations in India. I think the Kaiserreich developers did a great job having them interact with one another in the paths that they can take. Although, as I said several times, definitely a work in progress in some areas. So, if you liked this video, hit that like button. Please comment below. Tell me which one of the three Indian nations is your favorite. There will be a link below to all my Kaiserreich guides, including the one, my playthrough as the Bharatiya Commune, which kind of got cut short at the end, but it's a very old one, but maybe you'll check it out, maybe you'll like it. The first episode is very good, because I did unite the subcontinent, so learn how to do it by watching that video. And finally, if you become a Patreon of mine, who I want to thank all the Patreons I already do have, because it's because of them that I'm making this video. They voted on it. Patreon voters can decide on future content, and I have another poll up, even as we speak, that is incomplete. So become a Patreon and go do that. Thanks for your time, and have a wonderful day.